Tool number 3, parliamentary debates. When cabinet ministers present the government's proposals for new policies, laws and programs, parliamentary debates allow both opposition and government MPs to air concerns, make suggestions and endorse proposals. If you ever watch those debates, you know they can get a little fiery. But the debate is important as it informs decisions and continues until a vote is taken on the way forward. Then we have tool number 4, parliamentary committees. The general sittings of Parliament are not always sufficient for detailed examination of government work, so oversight committees are formed using government and opposition members to do just that. Some committees like the PAC and the PAAC are in place for an entire parliamentary term. Their job is to monitor the use of public funds to find ways to increase value and efficiency while reducing waste and corruption. Cabinet and state ministers are not appointed to oversight committees since they are a part of the government. Some committees are formed when a need arises. For example, joint select committees are formed to review draft policies or legislation or to probe other matters of serious national importance. Members of these committees are both opposition and government MPs and senators, and these committees will usually invite citizens to share their opinions, concerns, and recommendations. So there you have it, 4 accountability tools of Parliament that are used to make sure government run right. Visit jampja.org to find contact information for your MP. Invite them to meet with the community so they can better represent your issues and concerns in Parliament and keep government accountable. Get involved and let's make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Traveling to Jamaica? Submit your customs and immigration declaration online for faster processing. Visit the enterjamaica.com portal, complete and submit your declaration prior to departure. Upon arrival, proceed to the immigration kiosk and swipe your passport to confirm your trip details and declaration. Once done, proceed to the customs hall to retrieve your luggage and final clearance. The online C5, making air travel easier. You may contact us or the Passport Immigration and Citizenship Agency for more information.
And Investment for Transformation program, the LIFT program, was announced by the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, in his budget presentation. And he noted that this was an important element of the transformation of skills, the transformation of employment in our country. Now, when you see the LIFT program, you have to see it within the broader context of the administration trying to work through programs that deal with poverty alleviation. And we think, very importantly, that employment, especially at the youth level, and skills training are central to that.
The first outcome is to provide sustainable avenues for education. And so the LIFT will provide opportunities for continuous learning and skills development, ensuring that the participants have access to further education and training beyond high school to enhance their employability skills and their personal growth. And of course, we have the employment opportunities. So the program aims to create pathways for employment for the targeted school leavers, to help them to secure jobs in various sectors based on their skills, but not only their skills, their interests, their experiences, and their qualifications. And then there is the social assimilation, which is so important. And then there's the social mobility. We will bolster their social mobility.
think the Lord has taken note of the content of that prayer. And so do we. I'd like to welcome members to this meeting, which is the first meeting we're having in the new session of Parliament, which is scheduled, in fact, to begin formally next Tuesday. But we regard these meetings that we're having in the interim as being part of the formal session, because they represent what our timetable for this, what I call the winter season, represents. Today, focus is going to be on the IC's presentation, but before that, I know that we have a small housekeeping matter to resolve, which no doubt will come at the right time. I want to close the opening remark quickly by indicating my wish that all members are properly refreshed and refurbished and energized to take on a very strong workload, because this session of Parliament is going to be very, very, very active. There are a lot of unfinished business that we have to deal with. Certainly from the oversight point of view, some details in relation to elements of reports that we haven't seen yet that we will have to look at, and also to look at restructuring and reorganizing ourselves to be able to give a more vigorous oversight. It's very important that the IC is a critical institution within our democratic framework, and as a critical arm of Parliament, we feel that there's much that can be accomplished on both sides, on the side of the IC as well, of course, on the side of the oversight. And I want to emphasize that the oversight must be seen not as an instrument to in any way contain, restrain, or otherwise inhibit the functioning of the IC, but rather to enable it to be more efficient, to respond more fulsome, and also to enable a fair and honest interpretation by the public and by all of us as to its work and its outcomes. As chairman, I am committed to that, and I know I can speak on behalf of the members of the committee in that regard. Apologies for absence. Member, I think there's a one in the middle. If you press the one in the middle. Yes.
Touch your service. Oh, it's on now. Mr. Chairman, may I be permitted to say something?
Yes.
All right.
I was hoping you would say something at the minutes, but go ahead. You have permission.
At our last meeting on July 25th, there was a disagreement. I disagreed with a ruling you made after asking certain questions. It said that I said you encourage wrongdoing in the minutes here and in the public, so in certain quarters. It has been said, I felt that I referred to you as being corrupt, which I never did. I made a statement on my way out through the door, and at no time did I say anything directing to you as being corrupt. I've known you for many years, and I've never seen any part of you, any actions that you have taken that is corrupt. So at no time did I refer to you as being corrupt, And that's something, Mr. Chairman, I would never do. I regret that it is felt and interpreted that way in the public, but I could never refer to you, Mr. Chairman, as being corrupt. And I'm sorry for any inconvenience I might have caused to you. Thank you.
Well, I make no comment on that, but to receive graciously your explanation. I didn't ask for an apology, but I think an explanation such as you have given will suffice, because I think that the public had a very unfavorable response to that exchange. And it is my hope that we will never be ever in that position again, where there is even a misinterpretation of what our true intentions were, either as a result of verbal expressions or body language in the conducting of the affairs of the people, and in specific reference to the oversight activities of the Integrity Commission. Thank you. Okay, so matters arising from the minutes? Oh, you move for the adoption, seconded by Member Malahou. Fourth, yes. Seconded. Matters arising from the minutes. It's a very brief set of minutes, which really covered the review, as we did, of the Annual General Report 2022-23. In fact, the intention, of course, was to fulfill the requirements of the Act for us to review within a specific time frame and to report back to Parliament. In fact, we indicated to Parliament in the report that this was an interim report, in fact, and that we would take a more fulsome view of the report at a later stage. It is my intention to have a number of meetings in October that will fulfill all our requirements in terms not just of the oversight, but also, as I said, to look at how we can perform better and what kind of structures we may need and what kind of technical support we may need. I am fully of the view that this oversight committee isn't going to be in need of strong technical support as we carry through our functions. You recall that I had indicated, and in fact the committee had agreed, that the Integrity Commission should assist us by doing a summary of these reports in a form that would allow us to be able to digest quickly and respond accordingly. But I think that there's need for a deeper look. And the Australian model is a useful one that we've been looking at. And whilst I'm not using the opportunity today to discuss that, I'm indicating that we are going to be looking at a model which will allow us to have a more nuanced response by virtue of technical support and guidance that the Oversight Committee will have from, a consultant of standing who would fit the bill for us. The Australian model is a useful one, and I am looking at it, and I think one or two other members might be au fait with the model. We will not comment fully on it today, but I can tell members that the strengthening of the capacity to manage this whole process is critical. I'm lucky that we have a number of attorneys on the committee, but this may not be the case at all times, and therefore it is important, I think, for the committee to have the capability to be able to respond. The other good reason is that, and to your credit, the IC does provide very copious and sometimes very voluminous reports on matters, and it speaks to the depth of their own analysis and the care that they take to ensure that adequate reporting is done. So we would like to be able, as a committee, to respond well to the good work that may be done and also to identify where there may be any deficiencies that needs to be corrected. Member Malahuford. Yes. I have to turn off in order.
Yeah, you have it now. Yes, we'd like this at Parliament. In fact, we will have it. Thank you.
Chairman, I should like to suggest for your and the committee's consideration that at some point we clarify the work of this committee vis-a-vis the work of the Joint Select Committee that is reviewing the Integrity Commission Act. I believe there is some confusion in the public space about the role of the respective committees, and even though the matters are integrally related, the areas of work are somewhat different.
No. Chairman, it's fair to say that there is that overlap, because in a sense, many members of the Joint Select Committee are also members of the Oversight. But the Joint Select Committee, as I understand it, should be a temporary committee to look at the Act, how it can be modified, amended, but as the case may be. I must admit, I thought we would have completed that review already. But the Oversight Committee, as I understand it, has the broad mandate and is permanent to, during the course of the Parliament, to be able to respond to concerns of the Integrity Commission and to address the concerns of the Parliament or the public to the Integrity Commission. So what has happened in the past is that I don't think the Oversight Committee has met as often as it should. But as you intimated, the likelihood is that we should.
Thank you for giving that explanation, because I was about to, in fact, read Section 73D, which is what gives substance to the Oversight Committee and defines it, bearing in mind that it is a sessional committee as opposed to a joint select, which is a temporary committee established for a specific set of duties, which when discharged, it no longer exists. While in the case of the Integrity Oversight Committee, it's a sessional committee that will be there until the parliamentary year is over, and then we reappoint, as the case might be, and it serves throughout the entire tenure of the particular parliament that has been constituted, which is usually for 5 years or any period in between, as may be determined by the Prime Minister from time to time. So that, I think, if there is need, a member Malahuford, for any further explanation, we could have a release made just to reinforce what the two responsibilities are. And for that matter, the public should be guided that they are free to send to us, the Oversight Committee, whatever concerns they may have in terms of the performance of the Integrity Commission as well, and we would be able to respond after consultation and discussions with the IC. Very well. So now we move to new business. And the new business today, which is really the substantive matter for discussion at this meeting, is a recommendation that we got from the Integrity Commission with regards to the proposal for the revision of the prescribed total annual emolument threshold pursuant to Section 39 of the Integrity Commission Act. And we have with us as our guest today a team from the Integrity Commission, and I'll ask the team, Mr. Stevenson, to indicate and of course to introduce the team and then to make the presentation.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I would like to first extend greetings on behalf of the Chair and the Commissioners. So today we will be delivering a short, concise proposal with respect to an amendment to the prescribed total annual emoluments threshold. So today, Craig Beresford, I'm the Director of Information and Complaints. Mrs. Joette Jones-Hall, she's our Manager of Declarations, and Mrs. Evian Ortiz, or Legal Counsel. So if I may, Chair, proceed. Okay. So just by way of context, the World Bank reports that Jamaica is one of over 160 countries worldwide that requires public officials to make asset disclosures. Countries use asset disclosures requirement to promote transparency, promote integrity, gain public trust, detect conflict of interest, and combat corruption. Country models are varied to achieve different objectives. In Jamaica, the requirement for public officials to make asset disclosure is legislated by the Integrity Commission Act of 2017. The Act provides that certain specified public officials, by way of gazette, and all public officials in receipt of annual income of 3.5 million and above are required to file statutory declarations, which is a statement of assets disclosure. Over 40,000 public officials were required to submit statutory declarations for the period ended December the 31st, 2021. The foregoing represents an estimate of just in excess of 25% of public officials across the public sector. The practice of receiving and reviewing asset disclosures can be an effective tool in the fight against corruption, but it must be properly managed. Best practice promotes that at a minimum, all submissions received should be examined. Additionally, Section 32(1) of the Integrity Commission Act 2017 requires that the Director of Information and Complaints, among other things, shall examine all statutory declarations filed with the Commission. Having regard to the foregoing, the Integrity Commission must strive to strike a balance between the objectives to be achieved by the requirements of the asset disclosure regime and its effectiveness. Where the Integrity Commission must be guarded is extending the requirement to more than the 40,000 public officials who are required to file statutory declarations, as its current resources cannot feasibly review in excess of 40,000. I dare say we are having challenges even with the 40,000 that we have now. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in terms of what we will be doing. The government of Jamaica has recently completed and implemented a new compensation package for public sector. The implementation of the salary packages will result in an increase in compensation across the public sector over 3 years. The proposed increase is not proportional across sectors, nor is it consistent across salary scales. An observation of the GOJ monthly paid compensation scale up to 24-25 shows increases between 34 to 61% for some classifications. Now, what is happening in other jurisdictions? The consideration to move to a position-based criterion for selecting public officials is, among other things, being informed by a review of other jurisdictions which require asset disclosure as a part of their anti-corruption framework. The reference review has revealed that no other implementing jurisdiction uses a threshold for emoluments as a criterion to identify public officials who are required to file. Various jurisdictions require different levels of public officials to file asset disclosures. And a chart was compiled by Rossi, Pop, and Berger, and that was commissioned by World Bank, and it shows that 90% of countries that utilize this method, members of parliaments are required to file. 92% cabinet members, head of specific agencies, 70%, high-level authorities, 65%, and so on and so forth. Now, what are we proposing? Whilst there is no argued best approach for the selection of public officials to file statutory declarations, a risk-based approach, which is informed by jurisdictional peculiarities and the resources available, would be suited for the Jamaican model. In the foregoing regard, it is recommended that a detailed review of the public bodies will be undertaken to determine high-risk positions and the eventual abolition of the use of income threshold, but we're not there yet, as the basis for determining who should file. And I must say at this juncture that we know, along with the established threshold, we utilize a gazette, and that gazette identifies certain specific positions. Now, we started this conversation sometime in December, and our recommendation was to increase the threshold from 3.5 to 7 million. But following consultation with the Ministry of Finance, the AG chambers, and other public bodies, we have landed at a recommended figure of $12 million, and the commissioners agreed with that new threshold. So that is what is before us now in terms of a proposal for the consideration of the committee. I did mention what it is that we're going to do to be more efficient in terms of treating with the statutory declarations that we have within our possession. And one of the things that is on the horizon is the implementation of the electronic declaration system. Where we are now, Chair and members, is that we have received the draft. We have received the draft. Okay. Yes, my understanding is that further comments are expected before we finalize a draft and then take it to Parliament to provide for electronic filing. But all systems are in place on the Commission side in order to allow for it. So, Chairman and members, I'll rest here for now, and I am open to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beresford, and I apologize for calling you Mr. Stevens at the beginning because somehow, the two names were in my head, but Craig, you are well appreciated on this side. Thank you. The discussion that perhaps we want to have would not necessarily be as detailed as, because I think this we're looking at for the first time, and the members would probably want to, take a deeper dive into it, perhaps get some guidance, even outside of this committee, yes, I'm sure, and to also look at best practices, as you see, so that we could guide you properly, and then to make a recommendation to the JSC that is now doing the review of the Act to ensure that it is included in the overall review that will come to Parliament shortly for implementation. So a number of members want to make comments at this time. I recognize Member Malahoo Fort, I have Member Robinson and Member Chuck on the list so far. Member Malahoo Fort.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr.
Beresford.
Beresford, for the presentation. So the request, as I understand it, is for an increase under the current regime of the threshold. But currently, the Integrity Commission also uses a position-based approach by virtue of the bodies that you have gazetted or the positions that you have gazetted. And your ask is, of course, because of the number of office holders who would now fall in the existing threshold, making it administratively unworkable for you to review. May I just get an indication of how long it takes on average to review the statutory declaration and whether you are able to review all statutory declarations submitted within the reporting year in that year? That's the first question. It has other parts. Right. And if not, since the Act has come into effect, how many years statutory declarations have been all reviewed within the reporting year or the time frame that is set? How many are carried over into next year's? And how many do you have where since it's 2017, 2018, that the review have not been completed?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Sorry. I have a similar. You want him to answer?
To answer, yes.
Okay. All right. The office came into being in 2020, but the staff were not fully onboarded until about 2021, 2022. So the examination of statutory declaration on a larger scale did not start within the Commission until about 2021, 2022. I think it went into full force in 2022. So, of course, you can appreciate we would have declarations from 2018 coming all the way back. The problem we have is that when we start to review the declaration, some of the requirements that should have been met upon submission were not met. So we would have to write to declarants to require them to submit additional information. And that is quite a lot from our side on the one hand, but also the declarant, because the financial institutions in most cases require that they pay for certain statements, etc. And then we have the issue of declarants that require additional time. And I dare say it can take up to 6-7 months in some cases. And, you know, we have to appreciate they're public servants, they have their normal work, and, you know, it's very difficult to take time off to try and get these documents. And then sometimes the exigency of the service also, you know, would cause them not to be able to submit the documents. So we have those challenges. But to answer your question specifically, to date, well, for 2020, as of 2023, we would have examined a total of 563 declarations. 563 declarations. So we have been using a risk-based approach.
563 declarations.
Yes.
Examined in full or just examined?
Examined.
All right.
Yes.
And this is under the new law?
And this is under the new legislation. The prior legislation did not require the examination of the statutory declaration.
And this is 560 of how many?
563 of the amount that we received that year, if we do a linear approach, although we're going back.
Of the 40,000?
Correct, correct.
What percentage is that?
It's a percentage that we can't even write on a paper.
I know.
Yes.
I mean, I only ask it, right?
Yes.
Because, Chairman, I crave your indulgence. It may require a little bit of interactive interrogation, because the ask is in relation to the model that is used currently and a shift in model, and I really want to get an idea, as we are required statutorily to do, to get an understanding of how the law has been working, how it has been implemented, and how effective it is, even as we go to consider this specific ask, because the ask for the increase in the threshold is a precursor to another ask in a shifting model. So I crave your indulgence.
Yes.
Finish?
So, may I just ask now, and of the 563, which is 1.4%, how many have you signed off on entirely to say? 439. And in relation to the others, what is happening with them?
Sorry. The other declarations, they are still in our custody, so they will be examined.
No, that's not what I mean. Of the 439, the 439 out of the 563
yes,
that you've signed off on, I'm talking about the balance.
124.
The 124, the remaining 124.
124. And
Yes.
these are statutory declarations, so they may be for several years and they may be associated with one or two individuals. So for instance, 563 declarations.
So we wouldn't have
probably 4 would be for one declarant.
Sorry?
4 of those declarations may be for one declarant because it will be for 2018. Once we start to review, we examine 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021,
Hold on.
right up to the current
I
year.
just want a clarification.
Yes.
Just a clarification. The 40,000 you mentioned, is it for the last 5 or 6 years, or is it per year?
It's actually per year.
So you're talking for the last 6 years, a total of 240,000.
Give and take. It will be less because the actual
but-
requirement has increased over the years. Let me give you an example. In 2018, 35,000 declarants were required to file.
2018.
2018.
2018?
Yes. 2019,
Oh, 35,000
35,000.
required to file? And how
Required to
many
file.
actually filed?
And 13,847 actually filed.
847
Yes.
filed, okay.
But that is as at that date because
Right,
due to
right.
our campaign,
enough.
we are
Right,
getting more.
2019?
2019, 39,919.
Uh-huh.
2020, 40,000.
No, how many
actually
filed?
filed?
Oh, 13,498.
498.
Yes.
And 2020?
2020, 40,449.
Uh-huh.
And 23,532 actually filed.
532, okay.
Yes. In 2021, 40,347.
40,347.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And 29,207 actually filed.
Uh-huh.
And then for 2022, which is the last financial year,
Right.
44,348 declarants were required to file, and 31,535 filed.
So just a clarification.
Yes.
No, I go back to you. I'll let you continue. So you're saying of that total
Yes.
since 2018
Yes.
of just about 200,000,
Yes.
only 563 have been examined.
No. We would have examined 1,056.
Of a total of over 200,000.
Correct.
You have only examined just over 1,000.
Since
Correct,
2008 to 2022?
2018.
No, 2018.
Since 2018 to 2022, a total
Correct.
of how many?
1,056.
1,056
Correct.
examined. So one of the important things in lawmaking is to consider the administrative ease that is required to enforce or implement. And it makes me wonder, just hearing this figure, if we're requiring so many to file, and the numbers that have actually filed against the numbers that have been reviewed, what do we need to do differently? Does it really make sense to have a model where so many people are required to file, so many comply, and then so many of the complied are not reviewed?
And that is why we have made this proposal. And we want to migrate from it
even
also
before we get
with
to
a
the
threshold.
proposal now, even
Yes.
before we get to the proposal now, my concern is whether you have disaggregated who are the non-compliant, which category of public servants are the non-compliant between the 35 required and the 13 plus, the 39 plus and the 13 plus, the 40 plus, the 23 plus. Who are they? Because I don't think I have heard anything in all of the issues raised by the IC about the level of non-compliance. I've only heard focus on one or two groups of public officials, which creates a certain impression in the public about issues around integrity and compliance.
All right, let me speak to the groups. For our judiciary officers, 77% compliance in 2022.
Just a minute.
And
77?
77%, and that was maintained in 2023, 77%. Councillors?
20 in 2022. Yes. Hold on. And 23. What about the previous years?
Well, I only have the data now for the 2022-2023, but if it's required by the committee to consider a proposal, it's something I'm certain that we should be able to pull together.
Once you ask for revisiting of the model,
yes,
then we really have to look across. So the 13% non-compliance in the judiciary,
yes,
what approach is taken into dealing with those non-compliant judges?
We consistently examine the compliance rates, and it's something that is clearly within our focus. We take a two-pronged approach.
Rather.
Yes. We take a two-pronged approach. We engage the respective leaders of the groups, and we also use an enforcement method also, where we utilize a provision under the legislation, where we either request, give 30 days for them to file. If they do not file, we may take it to another level. In some instances, we use discharge notice, where there is a fine that they have to pay and they file. And it is dependent on how quickly we require the information on the one hand, and it's our discretion. So we'll make a determination which approach
Stay with
we
me
use.
with the branches of government
yes.
now. So this is the judicial branch.
That's the judicial.
May I get the figure? No,
oh, sorry.
We're not going down the level now. May I get the figure for the legislative branch?
100%.
That's it. Hold on. The legislative branch for the same period.
All right. Legislative branch. Come here. Okay. So for the legislative branch, I have the 5-year horizon for you. So 89 in 2018.
And you don't have that for the judiciary?
No, we haven't. Not here. No. What we have done is to publish that in the report, since this group has, a very good record.
Which group?
The parliamentary group, in terms of compliance.
But that's not the impression out there, right?
Well, I'm stating it here, and it's in our annual report.
I'm just saying it's really not the impression out there. But
yes.
I just want it for comparative purpose.
Sure, no problem.
So you say you have the 5-year from 18 to 22?
Correct.
Yes.
So 2018, 89 parliamentarians were required to file, and 88 submitted. On time, they have now submitted. So, and this is as at the date, because even the figures that I've given you for the judiciary, it is as at the 31st. But due to our campaign and, sending out notices, engaging public bodies, we will get during the course of the year. All right?
All right, so we have over 99% compliance.
Correct.
And for 2019?
And for 2019, 91 was required to file and 90 filed.
Okay.
2020, 107 was required to file, 106 filed on time. And I just want to say that we have the 100% compliance.
Hold on, man. 2021.
2021, 103 was required to file, and 102 submitted. And then, yes, but they still submitted afterwards.
The one has been submitting late, but not on time.
Well, and it's not the same person in most cases.
Of course, it begs the question: is it the same person?
It's not the same person.
All right, so 22. How many
and
were?
2022.
Yes.
84 was required to file, and 81 filed on time.
All right.
Yes.
And if you know, just break it down now. From those numbers, how many are in the executive branch, meaning the cabinet?
I would have to get that figure for you.
100%. Right.
But I suspect it's 100%.
So
I suspect it's 100%.
Suspicion of 100% compliance.
Yes.
All right.
Suspicion, correct.
So the narrative is to the contrary in the public space about the level of compliance by the parliamentarians with this. Let's hear about the councillors now.
All right. For the councillors, as at the 31st of March 2022, 71%. And as at the 31st of March 2023, 72%.
How do these percentage compare to the average?
The overall public sector?
Globally?
Well, in terms of...
Extremely high. Extremely high. Extremely high. So within the political directorate, you have a comparatively high compliance rate. However, wherever you compare it globally. But that's not the narrative out there.
And I must say, member, our narrative is in an annual report which reflects
No, man.
what your thinking
No, man.
is.
No,
so
man. The things
that is important to note.
There is a difference in what is said or highlighted and what is reported. And usually, the high level of compliance, even if it is reported in writing, it's never emphasized in the tweets, in the follow-up media communication, never ever, giving the public the impression that the lawmakers are lawbreakers in this regard. And I find it extremely unfortunate. Extremely unfortunate. Because it does not help to build confidence in the society. And after this law was passed, the ask in respect of resourcing the commission was met. But now we still hear that the model requires some reassessment, because what people are required to do, there is no hope that after they go through all of the trouble, for want of a better word, trouble is not, they go through the process of complying, that their declarations are reviewed.
Let me say this, member, and it's very important. In our 2020, I think it's our 2021 annual report, the chairman did indicate in his opening remarks that he had to commend the parliamentarians for 100% compliance, because although we had one short at that time, that person eventually filed after when he was writing his opening remarks. So, you know, the chair has used all avenues to communicate that. And then also we had submitted in the past a report to Parliament again about the compliance rates when we were asking for amendments to the third schedule. And we would have indicated the compliance rate for all the groups. So, you know, we use all opportunity. You said that we probably need to tweet it. I mean, we will take those type of things on board. No, I think it's important because, you know, where there are successes, we should highlight that. And we are going to have a program to look at how best we can communicate more of what is in our annual report, because we realize that a lot of persons, as the chairman said, the size of it is quite intimidating sometimes. And we will highlight certain very good things, because the report has a lot more things than what the media picks up most times. So the report speaks to a lot of other things in terms of works, etc.
As a
yes.
lawmaker in this role, is really what interest is being served in asking for the declarations to be made if they cannot be assessed timelessly to enable you to track integrity and spot corruption. What's the point? And if the compliance rate in the political directorate is as high as it is, then certainly they are not. I want to know how that relates to the risk that you, I'm trying to find the word, that you believe they pose to the integrity system.
All right, well.
Can I just follow up on that?
Before you do, I seek to offer you some guidance in terms of the extent to which we can accommodate interventions so as to enable everyone to have a good chance to, yes. So, and also there is an order that I have, and I think the line is Member Robbins after. No, I'm fully cognizant of, but I did have an order that I wrote. Member Robinson, would you yield to Member Chuck? If you will, then certainly. Member Chuck. Member Chuck, you have the floor.
I'm as a concern, Mr. Beresford, to get to what you're asking now with the 12 million. Firstly, I would like to know what's your estimate of the numbers that would be filed. But that is the first, could be the last question which we would ask. Because if you're only examining an average of 200 per year since 2017, you say it's over 1,000, just over 1,000. It doesn't matter. Well,
the staffing was not in place,
well, okay.
So we didn't have the staff to actually undertake the exam.
Well, how much was done in 2022?
Pardon me?
For
2022, 563? Yes, correct.
No, but you're saying that total over the 5 years is just over 1,000.
Correct.
So before last year, you had only examined 500.
500, which means over the other years, the staff, we may have 1 and 2 staff doing the examination.
Right, but
so
you see,
it was a smaller number.
What I'm really saying is, you have caused, or the Integrity Commission, or the Act itself, has caused 200,000 public servants to file declaration so that they could file in file 13. Because up to now, over 200,000 of them are just there, have not been examined. So going forward, it's clear you can't really properly examine more than 1,000 or 2,000. Why don't we find a threshold with a high risk or what have you, so that you get a number that you can properly examine? To say that over 12,000, I don't know what the figure is, but let us assume it is 10,000. Do you think your committee, your commission, can really examine 10,000? I mean the commission. So the point really is,
yes,
asking us to move to 12,000, shouldn't you really query now whether we shouldn't examine from the Ministry of Finance how many persons will be getting over 12 million, to determine if the figure that you will get is outside the possibility of the Commission examining all of them. In other words, if it is 5,000, 10,000, why waste the time of 4,000? You see the point I'm making? Get a figure, get some high-risk area, and tell the politicians, tell the police, tell ABCD, you're the ones who must file, rather than just saying over 12 million. I mean, principals might be getting 12 million. You may not want them to file. You understand? So is that so my question to you, isn't that something we should not confirm now, but come back at a later date to find out what would be an appropriate figure based on a proper threshold in determining a figure that is within your competence, the Commission's competence, to properly file and stop wasting time of persons who have to declare?
All right, thanks very much, Member. Well, first of all, the declarations are not really put away in file 13 because there are two things that we're looking at. We use a risk-based approach, so we focus on the riskier ones. Those are the ones that we try to examine first, and we focus on those. But also, we get complaints and information from time to time about particular declarants. So we go back to those files and we pull those declarations. And remember, the objective of the legislation and the Commission generally is to eliminate corruption. It's really not just to go through declarations just to certify. So we have to always look for the ones that are at the high risk levels, and we focus on those. And that's a specific reason why we have the Gazette. The Gazette does point out the risky positions and the risky organization and the positions. And this has grown over the last couple of years, and we assess it each year and we issue a new Gazette. And this is a tool that we would want to use. But notwithstanding this gazette, we have the power under the legislations 41(2) subsection A. It says that the Commission, acting upon the recommendation of the Director of Information and Complaints, may at any time in writing require any public official, regardless of what they earn, yes, or parliamentarian to submit a statutory declaration to the Commission. So we do have the tools. So I don't think they are put away in file 13 and we're not going to look at them. We're going to put together a system to ensure that every one of them is examined, because we're now in the third year of our data entry project. All of the statutory declarations are being inputted. The issue that we have is that over the years, persons have not been taking the process very seriously. So we find that a lot of declarations, we only have the name on it, nothing at all. Yes, that is what is happening. A lot of persons are not focusing on completing it properly, which means that we have to write to them and require more information. So we're having those issues and we have to contend with them. So a lot of the declarations, no supporting documents, etc. So with the implementation of the electronic declaration system, persons now would be forced to attach the required supporting documents. Once that is done and we have all the declarations, all we need to do is third-party checks. That process will be implemented, hopefully, for the next statutory declaration period once we get the necessary approval. So we would look at those declarations. The system actually does a bit of analysis for us. So a lot of the processes will be automated and we will be much more efficient. So I don't want us to leave here with the thinking that it was just a redundant process. It's something that we're going to get to. It's just that we have to incorporate technology in the process, which we're doing now. And this process is extremely important in terms of giving us that flexibility and latitude to do a risk-based approach and focus on the riskier ones, the high-risk persons.
Chairman,
was a question that I didn't get the answer to in respect of what has been done, what approach has been taken by the tens of thousands of public servants who have not complied in the figure. I'd ask specifically in respect of the 23% from the judiciary, but from the other categories, the tens of thousands. And when you compare, it's only one in respect of the parliamentary group, only one. And you say that one is not the same one, and that one, at any given time, filed at a later date.
There is justification why some may not file, or one may not file.
What about the tens of thousands of the other public servants? I haven't really heard anything, seen any tweet gone out from the Commission about those people who have not complied. Okay,
all right. If I may, member, can I just go through the other three groups, very important groups? The permanent secretary group, as at March 31st, 2022, 87%. As at March 31st, 2023, 94%, which means only one person was probably outstanding. Head of entities, and that's quite commendable. Head of entities, 90% as at March 31st, 2022, and 85% as at March 31st, 2023. 90% as at March 31st, 2022, and 85% as at March 31st, 2023. And then the wider group now, which is other public officials, as at March 31st, 2022, 72%, and as at March 31st, 2023, 71%. And I would suspect that one of the reasons is that we had a larger declarants list as a result of the reclassification exercise. But I must point out, though, member, and very important, compliance rate has been improving. As at 2018, the compliance rate was 64%. 2019, 65%. 2020, 78%. 2021, 82%. And this is after well, I'm using distinction as at March, but during the year we collect more declarations, and that's why you have a higher percentage. And then as at March 31st, 2022, 71%, and it has increased already, I think, to, well, about 78%, and we continue our compliance drive. Yes.
So sorry, Chairman, just
yes.
And you attribute the increase in compliance to the capacity of the Commission to do the work, to the improved capacity in the Commission?
Well, the improved capacity to a great extent in terms of our staffing, because we're able now to launch a proper public education campaign, which we do at the start of each declaration period 1. Secondly, we have been working with human resource managers in public bodies, and I must thank them and the head of entities. They have been assisting to encourage compliance. And last but not least, and it's a method that we would rather not use, but we do utilize, where we fine the individuals for not filing. And that can start from...
My last comment at this stage is that the improvements that have come as a direct result of the resources that have been made available, appropriated to the Commission.
That is correct.
Right. So again, it's contrary to the impression being given that the government has sent mixed signals about its commitment to improving integrity in public life and fighting corruption. Quite contrary to the perception out there. Because not everything that is required to be done requires the government to do something. But insofar as what the government is required to do through the budget process, it has done. And you see a direct relationship to your improved capacity to do the work and the highest level of compliance with the law, and the declarations come within the parliamentary group and the wider political directorate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Member. And I hasten to say that the Commission uses every opportunity to thank the government for the support. In all our annual reports, it is there in terms of the financial support, the budgetary support, and we hope that the government continues to support the Commission in that respect. But yes, we use every opportunity in our annual reports.
I just want to guide that comment, Member, Mr. Beresford. It is the stated commitment of the government, and it has in fact made good that commitment on all occasions to date, because in almost every instance when a recommendation is made for added resources, it goes to the Speaker of the House, our little committee meets, and we always approve. So you can be assured that there will be continued support from the government in all regards to enable efficiency and fair play in the execution of the duties of the Commission. I just want to just again say to members, let's be a little more economical with our time, bearing in mind that we now have 6 members and each would like to make a comment. Member Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 questions. One, Minister Chuck asked, you didn't answer. At the 7 million threshold, how many public servants would be required to file? No, man, hold on. No, first, at the 7 million threshold, because that was your original recommendation, how many public servants would be required to file? And then at the 12 million, how many public servants would be eligible to file? I take a view which may be different from my colleagues. I believe there is value in filing even when you cannot examine every single one, because the value is when people know that they're required to do something and there is a level of scrutiny, then there is a greater probability that people will comply and not engage in activities which are not corrupt. So I believe there is some value even when you can't examine everyone. But I want to know how many public servants you would need to examine if you were at 7 and then if you were at 12.
All right. First, let me speak about the increase. So as a result of the reclassification exercise, the requirement moved from 40,000 to about 44,000, and that's just only for 2022, because there will be increases over the next 3 years. So I suspect it will take us somewhere about 50,000. That's where it probably will land.
No, at which figure?
No,
at the current figure. Right.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
All right,
So
okay.
just by way of background, in terms of the $7 million, now, unfortunately, this is information that we would have to get from the Ministry of Finance, because we'll have to have a better understanding and appreciation of how many persons within the public sector, because we only get a declarants list of who filed for the 3.5. That's all the information we have. So in terms of how many persons will file at the 7 million, I suspect that would take us down to about 35 thereabout. The 12 million will take us probably down to about 10 or so. However, I must hasten to say, as a part of our gazette, all members of the armed forces are required to file. They make up 20,000 from our declarants list now. 20,000.
So regardless, so even at the entry level, a police constable, even if
That's
he's
correct.
below the threshold, is required to file.
Is required to file.
Okay,
All
so
police officers.
so the armed forces would represent of your probably more than 50% of what you are required.
Well, as it stands now, and as at 2021, when it was 40,000, it was 13,000 for the JCF and about 7,800 or so for the JDF.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that figure is not going to change significantly, apart from whether there is attrition, etc.
Yeah.
All right, that's important to know. The second question: when do you plan to move to the full electronic filing versus the manual system?
All right. We are ready now. However, we need legislative action to be able to provide for electronic filing. It's well advanced. We have been in communication with the Office of the Prime Minister, who is anchoring it there, or administrative ministry. And we reviewed a draft, I think, sometime 2 or 3 weeks ago, because the 2 amendments are required, one to the Electronic Transaction Act and also one for the Integrity Commission Act.
I support, yes, and I understand why this will simplify your work. My only caution is about ensuring that your systems are secure, because the sensitivity of the information being shared is at the highest level. I can tell you personally, I will continue to bring in my physical records, right? Because what you're exposing of your entire life, there's probably no other institution that would have all of that information in one place. So it will make your life simpler, but you have to ensure that the cybersecurity is robust enough. Now, if you move to the 10,000, to the 12 million threshold, which is approximately 10,000 public servants, what is your anticipation of your ability? What percentage of that 10,000 you believe you will be able to examine and either certify or not certify?
All right. Member, I must, if you allow me, please, to just speak about the robustness of the electronic declaration system, because it's very important, because I can understand, your apprehension. But one of the reasons why we have taken so long to launch the system, apart from getting the required legislative action, is that we want to ensure that it's safe and secure. As at now, we're running more penetration tests to ensure that it's a stable system and it's very difficult to be hacked. So I just want to assure the public that they can use it with confidence once it is launched. Now, we all know nothing is foolproof, eh? I mean, we are building things, persons are trying to find a way to get through the back door. But as it stands now, we're going to ensure that when it's launched, it's a stable, secured system. And we would want to encourage persons to utilize it. Now, having said that, in terms of the 10,000 that we're looking at, With the electronic declaration system, the process will be much more simpler. As I said, one of the difficulty that we're having is that persons are not completing the forms properly. And it makes it very difficult for us to be administratively going back and forth. I must say, the parliamentarian groups, and it's something again that I think I have to place on record, is one of the groups that complete the forms properly all the time. Some members submit all the documents. So, for instance, when we start to examine those declarations, probably just need to ask for 2 or 3 supporting documents. There are some, we send out a 2-3 page letter with information that was not included. So, if we have the electronic declaration system, persons will be forced to enter all the information. Now, the only process we need to associate with that now that is manual is a third-party check. So if we can do that with the amount of staff we have now, we only got all the staff for the declaration unit in 2022. We should be able to cover the amount that we have here, and that is what we're shooting for.
And so you're saying you believe with electronic filing, you can do 100% examination
that is what
of the records. Okay.
That is what we're shooting for.
Mr. Bersad, within the 1-year cycle, because I think that's where we really want to go, that declarations that come in within the year are in fact examined, and it does so much for the peace of mind of declarants when you can have a note to say that we have examined your declaration and we're satisfied.
Yes, Chair, and it's very important to clarify. It may not be within the same year. However, once we start to examine, we'll examine the prior years. So at some point, you will have certification for all the years once we start to examine your declaration. So if we, for instance, do not certify your declaration this year, next year we will certify the prior and the current. However, the high-risk groups, our focus will be on them, and we intend to do it annually for that group. And that is very important, because some persons who file declarations are not in very sensitive positions now. You may have a clerk, can't influence policy, has nothing to do with finance, no risk with respect to their job description, etc. That is not someone that we would want to focus on immediately. But the ones that are high risk, certainly, those are persons that we will look at. Yes.
So, Chairman, in keeping with the time that we're trying to make available for each member to speak, Member Warmington, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. As it relates to electronic filing, the current hard copy that we use, we're required to have it certified by Justice of the Peace. How will we have those that, when you switch to electronic filing, how do we get that certified, or that will be, section will be eliminated? And my first question. The second question is the 500 that you have already, you said you completed examination, you said 439, you have signed off on those. What year that is? All right, because I want to follow up on what year that was.
The 439 was certified in 2022.
All right.
Yes.
So for that 439, hopefully is section 42(3) subsection A is applied.
It's the difference between the 439 and the 563.
No, you couldn't.
Yes.
430, the 430, the 5, whatever you wouldn't, 560 wouldn't apply here. I said the 439 that you have signed off on, hopefully is section 42(3) subsection A is applied as it relates to this 439.
Okay, all 439 would have been issued a certification letter. Correct. And member, if I could respond about the electronic filing, a part of it is that we'll have an electronic signature, and that is accepted under the Electronic Transaction Act, so which is why we have to take some legislative actions to provide for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. A point of clarification and then a question. The 563 is a number that is important to me. Of the 563, that would be of 44,000, right? Right? 44,000. Of 44,348. 347. Yes, because that's 2021 you're dealing with. So of the 563, that does not represent individuals, it represents declarations. It could be one person having 4 declarations of the 563. But the 40,347 represents declarations for that year in terms of individual persons. So it would be 40,347 individuals. But for this year, for the 2021, yes. But the 563 could be 400 persons that you are looking on that have different years of declarations that are being reviewed in that year. Correct?
That's correct. That year, you know, it wouldn't be that year alone. So,
yes, I get you.
Okay.
2018, 2019, 2020.
Correct.
But it composes the number 563. The 563 is not individuals, it's declarations.
Correct.
So the percentage could be less than 1.4.
Possibly. Which is why I said initially that it's a percentage that I can't necessarily calculate.
That's a massive concern.
Yes. However,
yes.
However, I must interject. We have been taking a very targeted approach in terms of identifying the ones that we examine.
I noticed that.
And it's based on several things. One, information that we receive. Two, using our risk-based approach, we would have identified the high-risk positions, etc., and we focus on those.
Yes.
So it's really not about certifying, but identifying where there are deviations from the legislation. Because
so non-compliance.
Correct.
Non-compliance is not the priority. Persons who have not filed, that's not the priority. The priority is focusing the little resources on the targeted areas.
No, the priority is both. Because as I indicated before, we have been able to move the compliance rate from about 30-odd% to 80-odd%.
With more resources.
Using more resources, correct. So we focus on both, eh?
Yeah, but as it is now, you mentioned a while ago, and you mentioned it before in response to Minister's earlier question, that you have a targeted approach based on a risk assessment and also based on information received. What standard or form of information has to be received in order to trigger an investigation or trigger you to say that is what needs to be targeted?
So we're not at investigation stage yet. But for instance, if we receive information that a person may have assets that the person believes that is beyond, you know, their capacity.
Phone call?
Beyond their income.
No, I'm asking you the standard.
Phone,
so if somebody picks up the phone and says,
anything. It can be anything. The law provides that we can get information through several means. Phone call, walk-in, letter, whatever the case may be.
So you would agree then that somebody who is somebody who has a motive could trigger you?
Well, it wouldn't be, and that's why I made a clear distinction. We're not talking about investigation. The person will just say that X person has assets that we believe that they can't account for. We have our mechanism that probably take us 20 minutes to determine whether or not, you know, determine the veracity of that allegation or complaint. So it's not something that will trigger anything that will take up a lot of resources. So that's something that we can look at
to
determine
reports,
whether or not it's true.
In your reports, do you indicate the source of the type of information or what would have been the cause for you to say, yes, I'm going to target Pernell Charles in terms of his assessments for 2018, 2019, 2020? When you do your reports, do you say, this is what caused me to focus on this particular declaration for this particular declarant?
Well, we would have indicated in our prior reports that we are taking a risk based on groups. When we implement the technology, we can actually go down to an individual declarant. But as it stands now, we only focus on groups. So everyone within a group will be assessed. It's just that some persons come first and others will follow. We have to examine all of them. Recall also that the parliamentary group had an entire commission that looked at their declaration before the merger. So that group, of course, will be of certain interest to us to ensure, because, you know, the parliamentarians are the leaders of the country. So it's important for us to ensure at the end of the day that those are properly examined. So in terms of order, it may not even be information for that group. It's just that we are going through all the groups. As a matter of fact, something that we are implementing now is to ensure that all the parliamentary and statutory declarations are examined by the end of next year. So we will go back from the 2018 and conduct for everyone. And then there are other groups that we're going to take a similar approach. And it's because they fall in the high-risk group. So everyone's declaration will be examined. It's just the time when it will be examined.
What determines high risk to you? That we're the leaders?
Well, the political directorate. One second, please.
Let me get the question out.
Sure.
I understand the concept.
Yes.
Perhaps even the philosophy.
Yes.
But I want to appreciate how it is determined in your mind. High risk in terms of compliance, in the context of you making a declaration of your inflow and outflow of finances, is connected in your determination based on a parliamentarian being in a position of leadership, a position that gives them the authority to determine policy, I think I heard you say, right? Correct? And governance. And you find that that person has more responsibility and perhaps, in your eyes, greater concern than a technical person who is treating with issues on a daily basis?
All right. Well, firstly, it's really not in my eyes only.
Yeah, the commission.
Because, no, well, and beyond the commission. Because if you look in other jurisdiction, and that's why I was, at the start of the presentation, I spoke about the percentage that is spread across the different groups in over 190 jurisdictions, 160, sorry. And as far as members of parliament is concerned, 90% of the jurisdiction require them to file, and they also examine those statutory declarations. 92% for cabinet members, so it's even higher than just members of parliament. And the next one that comes close to that is head of government, and it depends on their constitution and their system of government. You know, you can have that separation. And then the head of state in 66% of the jurisdiction. So we are essentially following best practice model in terms of
I think
yes,
what's
what
unique,
to focus on.
What's unique about Jamaica, and it's not difficult to agree with that, and I do, is that based on what you've said to me, that group is the only group so far of what you have mentioned that has 100% compliance. I hope you understand where I'm going. There's no difficulty in terms of the categorization and appreciating why one in your position would want to have a consistency in evaluating parliamentarians. But within the reality that these parliamentarians have proven and established over time to be your most compliant group, I would expect that perhaps those persons who are not compliant would be the ones who I think are the most high risk after a while. It wouldn't mean that you wouldn't focus on the parliamentarians. They continue to be high risk, yes. But those who are not there complying, that would give me a trigger without even a phone call. There's a reason why.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. The parliamentarian group have been quite compliant in terms of compliance. The examination of their statutory declaration follows. Now, as it concerns the other groups, we are seeing increased compliance, and we are moving towards a 100% compliance. That's our target, and we continue to maintain it. It takes time because, you have to have a lot of engagement, and then, you will have to, in some instances, as I said, it's not our choice to go to the other provisions of the legislation that we can either fine them, charge, etc. But we encourage persons to file. It's a responsibility required by the legislation enacted by Parliament. And, I use this medium to encourage persons who have not yet filed to do so as soon as possible. Now, as it concerns your comment that the ones that have not filed may be the ones that are very high risk, we are aware of that. And in a lot of situations, when we have information and we start to look at things, we write to those persons and require them to file if they have not filed. And if they do not file, then we have to take further action. But I must say, the declarants have been responsive. When we reach out to them, a lot of them would explain that they were not even aware that they should file. No, ignorance is no excuse. However, we have to take that on board. Our objective is to get them to file. And that is the key thing. And, as I said, I just want to use this medium to encourage persons to file who have not yet filed.
Member Holness. And then after, I would like to make a final comment and then to ask you to retire so that the committee can take a look at the proposal that you've made and make a determination as to where we take it from here.
My question is a very quick one. In terms of training, I know some of the reasons persons would have had for non-compliance, not even understanding the process. What is done now in respect of training or planned in terms of training for persons in all the categories, and I presume more so starting from high risk all the way down? Because I have run into persons who really have no appreciation of how to fill out a form, and over time having a deeper sense of how dangerous it is to fill out that form incorrectly. So I'm wondering, other than the help desk, which I know you have, I've checked that you can call, are we going to embark on a process of strategically training the different cohorts of individuals who are required to fill out the declarations?
All right, thank you very much, member, for that question. We have been doing several things. Through our corruption prevention division, we work along with them to deliver presentation to public bodies, and we have done quite a few. Alongside that, we have videos on how to complete the declaration. And coupled with the video, on our website, we have full instructions on the type of information that you need to place in each section, and description and definition where required. So we have done quite a bit, and we will continue to do more because our public education campaign is a part of our declarations program. So we will continue on an annual basis to do the necessary public education, and again, through our corruption prevention, stakeholder and anti-corruption division, we have been delivering several presentations to public bodies, and we'll continue to do so.
Very well. Member Maliford, we are allowing you the final comment on this, and we rely on the brevity of your process.
I would ask that the parliamentarians be trained. Since 2016, I became a parliamentarian, and I know for a fact we have not had a training. So I would welcome a training for our session of parliamentarians. I know you have done the cabinet but not MPs generally, and particularly when you have so many new members of parliament, it would be good. So I would welcome such a training for us.
I think just to give some support on that, I think it is being scheduled for MPs and senators. So that will come in due course, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. The document before us indicates that there is a recommendation that a detailed review of public bodies be undertaken in the financial year 23-24, which is where we're in.
Yes.
Just wonder where you are with that detailed review, and to link that with the 85 to 90% compliance rate for heads of entity, and just to get a sense of where you are with that review and what is the implication for that review on your proposal to move to a risk-based system.
All right, thank you, member. The review that we spoke about in our proposal is not a new review. We undertake it on an annual basis to arrive at the Gazette of Positions. So it's something that we do on an annual basis. So a lot will not change. We will continue to use our same approach where we assess the positions and then we make the necessary recommendations and we issue the Gazette.
Chairman, just one quick question. Is there any public body at all that is exempt from filing, the employees from filing statutory declarations? Any?
As it stands, I cannot speak particularly about one matter because there is a public body that has, has pointed us to some provision of the Constitution, and we have asked for guidance from the Attorney General chambers, but it's only one. But all other public bodies, do fine.
Do you have an opinion on a call for members of the Commission and staff of the Commission to also file and submit statutory declarations and be assessed, have their integrity assessed systemically in the same way that the rest of the public service is assessed?
Well, my apology, I have no opinion, but what I can say is that all members of staff are required to file statutory declarations, and we do. And there's always 100% compliance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beresford and the team. I wanted to indicate that I've noticed in your document that the Rossi-Poppenberger scale has identified 18 critical areas for disclosable reports, and I think that you might want to guide us as to whether you are yourself being guided by this as the best standard that World Bank might have established, and how would that enable the 10,000 threshold that you seek to be realized, and also would it omit any sensitive area or high-risk area that you may want to include?
Sure. The process that we're going to adopt is still at the fledgling stage because we wanted to first get cabinet view in terms of us using that risk-based approach and migrating away. We'll look at several methodology and approaches. World Bank is one that we'll also look at to make the determination, but I suspect that after the review we'll land somewhere. But that would have to go through our own internal processes where the board would have to sign off on the full approach that we're going to use. So it's a bit premature to really say anything about it yet, but we looked at it just to make our case that in other jurisdictions, these are the groups that they focus on.
For us to be guided in order to make a determination as to what support to give to this recommendation from you, I think it is useful for us to have a sense of timing too, as to just how long you propose to have this threshold of 12 million obtaining, and whether or not you are going to move within a time frame that is measurable to the risk-based assessment.
As it stands now, Chair, we're using a hybrid approach because we continue to utilize our gazette, which is risk-based, and we are utilizing the threshold. In terms of how we migrate, again, I don't think that it would be appropriate for me to say so unless we have a board committee and we will discuss these matters in terms of when we would want to migrate fully away from the threshold to purely risk-based. So that's something that we would have to discuss and finalize on. But certainly, as it concerns the threshold, it is very important that for us, and if the committee is so minded, that we could accelerate this process, because it would mean if it's not in place by the end of this year, then persons would still have to file and would have that large number again coming in. So time is of essence with respect to this particular.
And that's where I was going. So can we then require of you that analysis that I think Member Malaford asked for, so we could determine quickly the categories of persons that are going to fall within that 12 billion band. So you know, we could act quickly and give you our response. In fact, we want to move quickly too, because we need to include that in the JSC review that is currently happening. And just to give a bit of information, I was hoping that we would have spent Friday pretty much on it, but for other reasons, we are going to have an early October determination of the full program for the JSC. So I can assure you that we will have a position for you before the first week of October, so that it can be included in the deliberations of the Joint Select Committee.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. As it concerns the analysis, we do not have the information. It's the Ministry of Finance.
I appreciate that. So what we would ask you to do is to, absolutely, and to get it to us as quickly as possible, so we could be better guided in terms of our own position on this. All right? So thank you very much, and have a very pleasant evening, all of you. Yes. In the meantime, can we ask members to just hold a little for us to do a further look at the proposal that has been put, and to give the chair some guidance as to how we respond to the JSC. You want to make a point?
I just want to say thank you very much, Chair and members, for your comments, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Members, just to hear from you now what your own perspective is on the 12 million threshold. Whether we do appreciate that the number of declarants at the current level is going to be humongous. It's well going to be over 50,000. It's very clear. Remember, Chuck, in your interrogation, it became very clear. You actually mentioned that it became almost a mockery to be declaring, because 50,000, and of that only 563 can be dealt with in a given year period. It's really ridiculous. So there is a good argument, I think, for a methodology which will make a more manageable number, be there for review. But what you don't want is for the categories to be so structured that it allows for persons who should be declaring, not declaring. Yeah, what they're asking us to do is to accept the proposal. This is what I'm saying to the members. I said today, I said that at the beginning, that today wouldn't be a decision-making day. And to ask them to give us this analysis is further to enable us to be better positioned to give a fair position on it. Within, I would say, 2 weeks. I wouldn't want us to go beyond 2 weeks. And I said that because the JSC needs to conclude its work. And this proposal would have to go to the JSC to be included in the legislative adjustments.
Chairman, the IC has the power to be able to declare certain areas high risk and therefore ask them for declaration. The police and the army, heads of various departments, permanent secretaries, all the parliamentarians, I suspect all the councils, these are all high risk, which no doubt they should include. But we have, Chairman, persons who are making, salaries above 12 million in the public sector, who are put through this annual need to write letters and get things done. And I just suspect, Chairman, that we might be getting 2,000, 8,000 declarations, which is of really very little value. So I mean, the 12 million, I don't know how many. I think Mr. Beresford gives the impression that it could reduce the figure to 10,000. I suspect 10,000, Chairman, is huge. The likelihood is that even if they employ a dozen more staff or 20 staff, that they're unlikely to be able to examine 10,000. That's my concern. So I'm just wondering, Chairman, if the recommendation shouldn't be that they identify the categories that should be sending their declarations.
Based approach, which I think they said they're not quite ready for, and I believe that one is fraught with some, dangers too. We really have to examine that carefully. The same Rossi et al. Chart that they gave us identify 18 categories, which I think could be useful. If they follow that 18 categories, it could be very useful to us in determining what would be the basis of the risk analysis. But I worry about a hard number. The truth is, it's there already. The proposal is in regards to a hard number of 12 million or so. But I take your point very well, Member Chuck, that 12 could also bring into for a number of persons who need not make a declaration because their position might not be all that sensitive. And then what you would do is to literally take off the hook those people who should, in fact, be declaring, because notwithstanding their salary levels being below 10, 12 million, the sensitivity and the high risk of their job requires declaration. So I think that the schedule that we see from the Rossi et al. Report might very well be useful for us.
I just want to say, I specifically asked whether at the 12 million they could do the full examination. He said yes, once they move to electronic filing, right? And he said he could do it. I'm not in favor of changing that at all. I mean, you may find that there may be some categories that we don't consider to be high risk, but my experience personally as a parliamentarian, you get better with experience in doing it, and after a while, you know, having done it a couple of times, it becomes easier and easier. I do believe there is value in having the categories do it, even if you do not have 100% examination. But he did say they are moving to full examination with additional staff and with the electronic filing. And based on that commitment, I would support the recommendation of the 12 million.
Any other definitive position from any member? Bear in mind that we're not making a final decision today, but it will be useful to get reactions such as Member Robbins indicated a while ago. Member Malafort.
Chairman, I am especially concerned with how time and resources are used. I'm especially concerned with the administrative workability of our system. When you look at the research on the various approaches taken in the fight against corruption, you will find in the body of research that the asset-based declaration has been questioned, the effectiveness of it has been questioned. I find myself wondering whether it makes sense to statutorily mandate people to file declarations and supporting documents knowing full well that the system will never review them. I take into account Member Robbins's perspective that even if the Integrity Commission is unable to report to them, there is some good in having the submission, the declarations prepared and presented. I think a better approach would be to mandate a certain category of people to file, knowing that the capacity is within the Commission to examine fully those declarations, indicate a set of people who may be required to file at any time, and all that would be required is for sufficient notice to be given and sufficient time for them to have the declarations filed. But I really question the utility of requiring so many public servants to file against the data that the Commission has presented to us today, and to then have the limited resources be used in that way. It doesn't make sense to me. I think a big part of the work in bringing integrity in public life is to educate our public, educate the people who work in government and the people who deal with government about the kind of conduct that is expected of them to ensure that there is integrity in public life. So I'm going away from this meeting to seriously consider whether this model that we have makes sense at all, even as they're asking for a review. I wholeheartedly support a system of ensuring that we can measure integrity in public life. But the numbers presented by the Director of Information tells a tale that we, as the Oversight Committee, will have to spend some time reflecting on. And then what really concerns me, Chairman, is the impression that the public, members of the public, are left with about parliamentarians. And pardon me because I am in this category. I have repeatedly reminded people that the law is not focused exclusively on the political directorate, but you would never know. Somehow, people think that it's only the parliamentarians that questions of integrity and questions of corruption are raised about. And of all the categories of public servants who are required to file, the parliamentarians have 100% compliance.
I recognize that as a very useful piece of information that may not be as readily known all over. And you're right, the perception does not comport with the knowledge and of the information that we got. But having said all of that, we still have to find a mechanism that is going to enable efficiencies. And I think that the call today is to enable greater efficiency in not just enabling declarations, but to, in fact, process these declarations and to eventually sign off on the declarations. Because as I indicated to them, all of us who do are in trepidation almost for 2 years, 3 years, waiting on a letter to say that you are cleared. So we have to have a mechanism that increases the timeline, or reduces significantly the timeline that we have to wait. But as I said, I don't think we're going to make determination at this particular meeting. I am of the view that we could do some level of round robin over the next few days so as to allow for a determination by the 4th of October. I don't think we could go beyond that to enable the Commission to know exactly what is going to happen the way forward, but more so that we can give the Joint Select Committee proper guidance in terms of dealing with it.
Chairman, may I just say that I have no doubt, and I agree to a certain extent with Member Robinson, that a figure is appropriate. Should it be 7, which was what the IC wanted, or 12, which is what the counter recommendation? We would like to get how many persons would fall in that category. And also, Chairman, if you don't mind, could we, I should have asked, we look at 15. Suppose at 15 you have 6,000, but at 12 million you have 12,000. Would it? Sorry? He said about 10,000, but suppose at 15 it reduces it to 5,000. I mean, even to examine 5,000 files would be still challenging.
I think in all fairness, we should give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of their express capacity to deal with the 10,000. If it fails, then because that's our job. We are the Oversight Committee. We have that opportunity to come say to them, look, it is not working. We want you to review it even further. So I would be inclined to say to us, team, let's do the round robin over the next week and a half or so. Give me, the chairman, a position on it as far as all of you are concerned, and by the 4th of October, we can sign off properly, advise the Commission by way of an invitation to them to come back, and then to advise the Joint Select Committee in terms of what work it should do to bring it into the legislation.
Chairman.
Oh, just one. Could we ask them if they could supply to us a look at different jurisdictions in terms of the approach taken, primarily in the Commonwealth region, and maybe examine about maybe UK, Australia, some Commonwealth, Caribbean, Commonwealth in Africa, just to see what other jurisdictions do in terms of their approach to this issue, so we have an idea of how they approach the matter.
I have no difficulty with adding that. So the two asks from us would be the analysis of what the 12 million would mean by way of declarants, categories of declaration and declarants, as well as to examine best practices within the Commonwealth so as to give us some guidance further there. Last one, yes?
Yes, I think that the request for that comparative analysis is beneficial, but we should note that what is being proposed is an interim process. What they ultimately are asking for is to move towards a completely different structure, which would be risk-based. So one of the things that we perhaps need to find out, Chairman, is also what is the projected timeline? What do they, in terms of their organizational structure and strategic projections, how long do they think they would be, or how long do they project utilizing this method of 12 or 15 or 7 up to that period?
For that, but I think he was very careful not to make a commitment because he would have to get guidance from another place. So, team, no, before we just say any other business, I entertain the motion. Thank you very much, team. October 4th at 2 p.m. at George William Gordon House. At William Gordon House. I think it's a Thursday. I think it's a Tuesday is 2. The second is a Wednesday. Wednesday. Yeah.